Yo, we're live. It is your weekly edition of GridironStuds Live Weekly. If you don't know me by now, I'm Chad Wilson, and it's time to get into it. Going to talk a little bit of sports, college football, because that's what everyone likes around here, and that's what the demographic is all about. So, college football recruiting, and a little bit of stuff on some defensive backs. And if you guys in the chat come up with something especially interesting, might be able to touch on that. I can't make any promises on it. Just so you guys know, listen, I'm definitely going to read the comments. I can't always respond to something because it gets difficult to kind of be doing a show and running off of the comments. I hate when I'm watching a live and someone is sitting there trying to read the comments, and then also it kind of disrupts the flow of the whole thing. So if you're posting in the chat, and I definitely want you to do that, I definitely want to read your comments. But if I don't respond to it, doesn't mean I didn't read it. And again, if I don't, it's because I don't want to really disrupt the flow of what it is I am saying and doing here on this show. So that's really what I'm trying to do here. So once again, I forgot my mic. I'm going to apologize in advance. You know what? Let me see if possibly I could fix that situation. We could do stuff like that, but I'll keep talking while we keep going here. If you are watching, drop a comment. Let me know that you're here, and you can kind of figure out who you are and what you're doing here for us. But nevertheless, just trying to get this whole thing going right here for you. I remember how I did this last week. Oh, I do remember how I did this. Pop this bad boy here in on the side. And since we don't have a ton of people that have checked in yet, I think I'll be able to do that. Run it here up under my shirt. You guys are getting a little bit of the behind the scenes. Get this mic turned up this way. Uh-oh. Testing. How am I sounding anyway? Why is this looking like this? Anyway, let's get my mic set up. So if you guys that are early are getting a little bit of the behind the scenes, I don't know why the mic keeps tucking up this way, but nevertheless. Anyway, appreciate you guys jumping in. Yeah, you see it. That NY. All right. Anyway, what are we going to talk about? NBA All-Star Game. I didn't have the pleasure of seeing it, but all the feedback and everything that I've heard says that the NBA All-Star Game everyone's talking about it like it's the best NBA All-Star Game they've ever watched. So, hey, man, kudos to the NBA for getting it right. Most All-Star games in professional sports are lacking something, a whole lot of something. So kudos to them for getting that whole thing right. And whatever the format was, if you watched it, I'd be interested in hearing why the NBA All-Star Game was so much better than anything that there ever was before. I heard that it got pretty competitive, which is tough to do in an All-Star Game because everyone pretty much knows what the deal is, and it's just a bit of an exhibition. So they kind of treat it like the Harlem Globetrotters dudes. Everyone's joking around and no one's really taking it seriously. But apparently that wasn't the case this year. So that's great for the NBA All-Star Game. Football is our thing here. So I remember a time when, and if you're older than maybe 25 years old, maybe you remember when the Pro Bowl was in Hawaii. And quite frankly, I enjoyed the Pro Bowl being in Hawaii back in the day. I'm not even sure why they moved it from there. I know that we reached a point where the Pro Bowl was not as competitive maybe as people wanted it to be. And so they started coming up with all these different ideas. And one of the ideas was to move the Pro Bowl from Hawaii. And they came up with several reasons why they needed to do that. I was never really sure what those reasons were, but nevertheless, it's now in Orlando. And listen, I'm all for Florida because I'm a Florida resident. I've been here for a long time, and I think it's great when we have things down here in the state of Florida. But the Pro Bowl, I don't really care for it being in Orlando. Let's move that thing back to Orlando. Let's move it back to Hawaii. Let's take it all back. I mean, we don't do much in Hawaii anyway. Why not give them the Pro Bowl? We don't need it in Orlando. And then and then the other thing that they did was they moved the Pro Bowl before the Super Bowl. What sense does that make? You got guys that played in the Super Bowl that are Pro Bowlers. Wouldn't that stand to reason as being the case? The two best teams would likely have several guys that are worthy of being in the Pro Bowl. And so why not? Why cut them out of it by having the Pro Bowl a week before it? I mean, that whole Pro Bowl deal is a mess. And so it's one of the things the NFL doesn't necessarily get right. They do a lot of things that are right. And, if you go on Twitter, you probably don't believe that because they're constantly getting criticized. But the Pro Bowl, not feeling what they're doing there with the Pro Bowl at all. Not feeling it. All right, there's a big fight coming up this weekend. It's Wilder versus Fury. Listen, who here thinks Fury is going to win this fight? I'm willing to bet that most of the people that are followers of mine that are watching this broadcast think that Wilder is going to win this thing and probably knock Fury out. You know what happens when everyone thinks one thing is going to happen? Usually the other thing happens, and that scares me. But, if you're someone here that's watching it or you're watching this afterwards and you think Fury is going to win this fight, by all means, drop a comment in here because I need to see some people say Fury is going to win this thing. How hurt are people going to be if Wilder ends up getting, is the one that's knocked out in this fight? Can you guys even imagine a situation where Deontay Wilder is laying on his back, knocked out? Kind of probably hard for you people to think that. That's the way I felt about Mike Tyson. But one night in 1990, I didn't even watch. Okay, so by now, even if you're super young, you know that Mike Tyson's first loss ever was against Buster Douglas. And let me tell you how much I didn't think Buster Douglas would even do anything against Mike Tyson. I saw basically every Mike Tyson fight that I could see. Then he's going to fight this guy, Buster Douglas. Never heard of him. Who's this bum he's fighting? At this point, Tyson had put a whole bunch of one-round fights together. And I think we were, in my mind, we're headed for another one of those one-round knockouts. So why am I going to go out of my way to go see this fight? And he's going to drop this dude inside of 2 minutes. Oh, yeah? Well, I'm on the phone with a friend of mine, and we're talking. And I'm not even I know he's watching the fight. We're not even talking about the fight. And out of nowhere, my friend starts telling me, hey, Buster Douglas just knocked out Mike Tyson. I'm like, yeah, all right. You knocked him out. Right. Buster, what's his name again? Buster Douglas knocked him out. He's like, bro, I'm telling you, he just knocked him out. I'm like, right. He had to take the phone and put it up to the TV for me to hear this, for me to believe it. And then even then, I still didn't really believe it. So when you think something can't happen, it's impossible. It's possible. So I say that to say Fury and Wilder this weekend. And if you think, first of all, drop a comment and let me know who you think is going to win this fight, Wilder or Fury. Then I really want to hear from you if you're one of these, if you're in the Fury camp and think Fury could knock out Wilder. Here's what I know. Wilder hit that man with his best punch last fight. And I just love the videos that I've seen of Wilder watching Fury get up. Just the look that he had on his face was like, are you serious? It's the face Apollo Creed had when Rocky climbed back up the ropes after he basically had, felt like he hit him with a truck. And there goes Rocky getting back up. I mean, like Fury got flat knocked on his back. And in everyone's mind, maybe even Fury's mind, like, this dude's not getting up. He's got completely blasted. He's like knocked straight on his back. So this dude rises up and goes right back into his goofy antics. That has to play a little bit psychologically on Deontay Wilder. like even if he knocks Fury down again, like completely blasts this guy on his back, he's got to think about the last time where he really thought the fight was over. He'd smashed this guy, it's over with, and there he is rising up. So that in itself makes a very, very interesting fight coming up Saturday night, probably somewhere around midnight. Okay. But again, if you're watching this live or you're watching it later, who you think's winning that fight, Wilder or Fury? And yes, Justin, whoever's not in here, got to hit that ground 50 times with some up downs. But I do appreciate you for stopping in and watching it. All right, we covered the NBA All-Star game. If you happen to watch it, which I wasn't one of them, seems like a good deal. Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder this weekend. Who do you think is going to win that? Let's jump on a topic that has really not really gone away. Folks are still up in arms about what happened with Mel Tucker leaving Colorado so soon after signing day and heading over to Michigan State. I've not done the research on it off the top of my head. I can't really recall a time where a college football coach took off, the head coach took off right after signing day like this happened here. I can't really recall it off of my head. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, right? I got a lot of stuff in his head now. It might, there may be a situation tucked away where that happened. Nevertheless, it's fresh. If it did happen, it hasn't happened recently. So people are very upset. And even Dallas Cowboys great Drew Pearson, whose grandson had committed to Mel Tucker at Colorado. Drew Pearson got on Twitter and was kind of letting Mel Tucker have it and said that Mel Tucker lied right to his face and, said that he was going to be there. And then the guy ended up taking off. So, these things happen. And I was sitting here thinking about it because, I've had a whole bunch of thoughts about this. And I did say on Twitter, and this, obviously was liked by many, many folks, said we've got to figure out something that we can do for recruits in the situation that the 2020 class from Colorado got into. You were recruited by a guy, you trusted him, you committed to him, you go to the school, a week later, he's off to another school. I think you got to do something for those guys. Exactly what? I have no idea. But, something's got to be done. After a while, I'm sitting here thinking about it. Listen, coaching is a man's livelihood, which it is for Mel Tucker. As we all know, there isn't a ton of loyalty in coaching. If Mel Tucker would have put together 2 mediocre seasons or have a particularly horrendous season at Colorado, he's gone and he's out the door. And if he stayed at Colorado, if he's being offered these other jobs, and he stays at Colorado out of some type of loyalty situation, and then he has a 3-7 or 3-8 season, and they decide to can him, he's going to forever think about the opportunity that he turned down at Michigan State that he could have taken. So, at the end of the day, this is a job and it's a career for guys like Mel Tucker and other head coaches that take jobs. What is it that as fans or as potential recruits or parents of recruits, do you think these guys should do? I'm not sure what we think a college coach could do. Is there never a time? What's a good time for a college coach to leave? Right after signing day? Right before signing day? Should they leave during spring ball? Should they leave right before the season? Should they leave in the middle of the season? When's a good time? Football has turned into a year-round sport because let's just take a look at this. You play a whole entire season. And when you have a bowl season, it runs into January. When January is over, you're face first into recruiting. So you're in the middle of the recruiting situation and you're trying to recruit guys. Is that a good time for a guy to leave? If a coach leaves and heads over to another school, what's he going to have for a class at the other place that he goes to? So January is not a good time. When the recruiting season is over and you have a national signing day, trying to leave right after that, apparently, as we've seen with the whole situation with Mel Tucker, because so many people are upset about it, apparently that's not a good time. A month later, March, you're starting spring ball. Who leaves during spring ball? March and April, that's spring football. Right after that, you're talking about getting ready for the season. Who leaves then? Who's trying to hire a guy right before the season? So I'm not sure what fans want. I'm not sure what parents want. I'm not sure what recruits want. When is a good time? And if you're listening to this live or afterwards, when's the best time? When's a good time for a college coach to leave? Because at first I started thinking there should be some kind of a dead zone. You know how we have a dead period for recruiting? We should have a dead period for when coaches can't move. You can't take another job. You can't leave. And I started thinking, when would that be? What months would that be? And as I just went through it, it's tough to figure that out. What month would we say it's okay to leave? June, July, August, right before the season? No. Don't want to do it in January, right before you're signing your recruiting class. Don't want to do it in February, right after you signed your recruiting class. March and April is spring ball. May and June, you're preparing for your season. July practice starts. August practice is going. August starts games. September through December, you're in the middle of your season. January is bowl games. So when can we let a guy out? What's going on? Next football legends. Appreciate you stepping in. But when's a good time for a coach to leave? The answer is there isn't. There isn't one. Okay. The next thing is, what do you guys expect the coach to tell recruits as he's recruiting them? Even if he knows he's going to take another job. Here's what happens if he's honest. If he's honest. If he goes into some kid's house or all the kids' homes that he's going to, or shows up to the school and says, you know, I'm thinking about taking the Michigan State job. We're talking about Mel Tucker now. Let's say I'm Mel Tucker and I'm at Colorado and I'm going around recruiting and I'm having talks with Michigan State and they're getting hot and heavy and they're thinking about offering me. They have not absolutely given me the job yet. So without me actually having that job at Michigan State, I'm still the head coach of Colorado. So I need to go around and recruit like I'm going to be at Colorado, because at that moment, I'm the head coach of Colorado. So he's got to go around and convince players from across the country that they need to come to Colorado. At some point while he's doing that, it looks readily apparent that he's going to now go to Michigan State. What do you guys think that coach is going to do if he's Mel Tucker? Should Mel Tucker now go tell those kids at Colorado, I'm bailing out, I'm leaving? What does that actually do to Colorado? That means every kid that he's recruiting to Colorado is going to now turn around and go to another school, assuming that they all have options. Does that help Colorado? Because who's maddest? The folks at Colorado. They're the ones that are the most angry. So we agreed, a coach, this is his career. So, you know, when he's offered more money or a better situation, like most of us who are working adults, we're probably going to take that job opportunity. So this is going to happen. Can we fault a man for trying to scale up his career? The answer is no. So if he's going to take another job, what in the world should he do? So I think when you think about it, honesty is not even an option in this particular case. Because if he's honest with all those recruits, then Colorado's signing class gets trashed. The next coach that comes in has absolutely nothing for that recruiting class. So he's going to start off behind the 8 ball. So yes, when that new coach comes in, there'll be sophomores and juniors and seniors that he'll have available. But at some point, the rubber's going to meet the road with that particular class, that first class that he came in with, that was nothing. It's going to hurt them at some point. So if Mel Tucker is honest with all the recruits, telling them that he's going to go to Michigan State, Michigan State's not going to get hurt. Colorado's going to be the people that are hurt. Colorado's going to be the program that's hurt. By the way, Justin, congrats on being invited to that Elite 100 showcase on April 25th. Kudos to you. Hard work pays off. Nevertheless, that's what's going to happen. And that is the case in every one of these situations. If the coach is honest, the kids aren't coming. What if the coach is honest and then something falls through with the other job? So again, going back into the case of Mel Tucker, if he's in negotiations with Michigan State and it seems, 99% sure that he's going to go to Michigan State, and he goes and tells all those kids that he is recruiting for Colorado, I'm going to Michigan State. And then in the final hour, that little 1% becomes a big deal and he ends up not going to Michigan State. His entire class has turned around and gone elsewhere. He's still now the coach at Colorado. Things don't work out with him going to Michigan State. And now his complete and total class is trashed. He has set himself up for failure. Because as I said in the other scenario, the rubber is going to meet the road on that recruiting class that ended up being trashed. So if he goes and he's honest with all of those kids, let's say it's a class of 25, and 20 of those kids turn around and go elsewhere, and you're scrambling late to just grab any old body to fill out your class, and he ends up staying, he's going to meet the pain of that. And then will the school really give him the benefit of the doubt on it? Of course they will. Because the whole reason that that happened is because you were thinking about going somewhere else. So when that class starts becoming what should be the prominent class in your program, meaning when they would be juniors, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and there isn't much talent there because the real talent you were recruiting went elsewhere because you were being honest, that's when you start having bad seasons. That's when you start going 5-7 and 4-8. You have a couple of 5-7 and 4-8 seasons with a weak class, then other kids don't think it's a great idea to go to Colorado. So the classes behind those seasons now become weaker. And now you don't have what you need. And then you're going to eventually be out of a job. So the system is set up for a coach to not tell you the truth as to whether or not he's going to take another job. And if you go out on recruiting visits and you ask a coach, is he going to stay here? The answer is going to always be yes. And in his heart of hearts, he may feel that. And then suddenly out of nowhere, another school that he didn't expect maybe comes and offers him a job that he simply can't turn down. Now, if a guy's making $2 million a year and another school comes and says, we're going to offer you $4 million a year, who's not going to take that? So you could be mad at Mel Tucker. You could be mad at any other coach that has just picked up and left, and he's done it at an inopportune time. And as I've shown you, there is no opportune time for a coach to take a job. It doesn't matter when he takes it, somebody's hurt. Someone's pissed off about it, and someone's up in arms, and someone's going to be upset. There is no opportune time. But when a guy does decide to take that job, and coaches will change jobs, the system is what makes it nonsensical. I mean, that's career suicide if a coach is honest in that situation and trashes a recruiting class. It doesn't hurt the school that he's going to. It hurts the school that he's leaving. So while you're mad at Mel Tucker, you know, if you're a Colorado fan and you're wrapped up in your emotions about it, understand this. By not being honest, he's actually helped the program. He brought in talent to that school by not telling the truth that he was heading to Michigan State. Now, the next coach that's coming in can make use of that talent and they'll move on. And that's such as life in college football. I do feel for some of the players that bought into what it is Mel Tucker was talking about with Colorado, that bought into the system. And, you know, if you're a player that really, really fit into what it is Mel Tucker was running at Colorado, and now it's going to be someone new doing something totally different that doesn't fit your skill set, listen, I totally feel it for you. And you need to move on. You know, it comes to that situation. I feel like something should be done for a guy in that situation. I'm just not sure what right now. And there are a number of questions that are out there about this whole situation. What is the most comfortable way? If anyone has a suggestion on this, I'm all ears. You know, I'll listen to it. What can be done for the players? When's a good time for a college coach to leave? I think we understand that a college football coach thinking about leaving cannot under any circumstances be honest with a player about it. They just simply can't. The system is set up that way. Blame the system. But we also, right now, as it stands, you know, we don't have any answers for that. And yes, you're right. Alito, if I'm saying your name right, there is no off season in college football. We just keep rolling from one thing to the next. Regular season, bowl season, recruiting season, spring football, and then summer workouts. And then we're back at it again. So Which one of those things that I just named is not important that a coach can just walk out in the middle of it and everyone's fine? There is nothing on that. Another thing I wanted to address. Listen, obviously, I run Gridiron Studs, GridironStuds.com. I have the Gridiron Studs app. I have a pretty popular Gridiron Studs page, at Gridiron Studs, by the way, on Instagram. If you're not following me, at Gridiron Studs. And obviously, I get a bunch of questions all the time. I get a lot of DMs. I get people asking me about exposure. And here's what I'm noticing. I'm noticing this trend where there are a lot of guys, potential recruits, high school football players that are all caught up on exposure. And from time to time, I'm going to say greater than 50% of the time at this point. When I go and take a look at the player, whether they're already registered on my app, which is the best way for me to get a look at you, if you just go DM me your huddle link, chances are I'm not going to look at it. And what you're probably going to get back from me if you DM me your huddle link on Instagram, I'm going to ask you if you're on our app. And if you're not, I'm going to send you the link to be on the app, because I know if you're on the app, I'm going to see you there. Nevertheless, when I go and check out the player's highlight video, or I go look at their profile, you are not ready to get exposure. So you want exposure, but I'm telling you, you don't want to be seen. I had a young man asking me over and over recently to post a video. The videos of him, he's a running back, breaking through the line of scrimmage, taking off, hitting the hole, and then he gets run down from behind. I tell the young man, you don't want me to post that video. He insisted I should. And which is not normal for me. I'm going back and forth with the kid. He wants exposure. I said, listen, young man, what's being shown on that video doesn't help you. It's not going to help you with recruiters, because they're going to wonder about your speed. And it's not going to help you with fans, because all anyone's going to talk about is how you got ran down from behind. I mean, you could have thrown the most magnificent jukes, which he really didn't. You could have broken 3 or 4 tackles, and we know how social media works. He could have done a lot of marvelous things, but he broke out into the open field and someone came from behind and ran him down. Guess what everyone's going to talk about? The fact that you got ran down. We're just inherently, for whatever reason, on social media, we steer towards the negative. So they're going to find that one negative thing in a great play, and they're going to just go on and on about it. And if you don't believe me, go back and check a couple of the videos that I've posted recently. One about a kid at the Rivals 3-stripe Miami camp. Kid made a great play, showed tremendous footwork. He's a defensive back. I mean, I know something about that position. Did a great job defending a ball. And all I heard were the negative things about it. So just try to explain to this young man, you don't want me to post that video. And if you're hell-bent on me posting this one clip, that leads me to believe that you don't have much in terms of other clips and highlights. So why do you want exposure right now? I've tried to explain this to guys. Some guys want people to come to their store, which is what basically exposure is. You want people to come to your restaurant, you don't have any food. That's what guys are looking like right now. You're asking all these people to come to your restaurant at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, and when they come through the door, you literally have no food to serve them. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to walk out of the door pissed off. They're going to remember this place, and they're probably not going to come back. Is that what you want college coaches to do? You want them to head on over to your profile and you have nothing? You don't really have much in terms of highlights? I'll have guys ask me to, can you get this out? Can you get me some exposure? And when I look on there, you're 5'10", 145 pounds. Well, yeah, you're young. Maybe you'll fill out down the road. But as of right now, you're not ready to be looked at. You want exposure. And what am I exposing? I'm exposing an unfinished product. So listen, I get you guys want exposure. I get now that in social media, it allows people to see everything that's going on with everyone else. So there gets to be this little factor where you're trying to keep up with the Joneses. Focus on yourself. One of the number one things you need to do early on in your playing career is get some food in your restaurant. That means go lift your weights, go run, get bigger, get stronger, get faster, get smarter in the game. Make sure you can make plays on Friday night. When you make the plays on Friday night, put them on your highlight video. Make a proper highlight video. And listen, I might put a link to this for you guys that are listening that have made highlight videos. So many of these highlight videos are being done wrong. You're actually a good football player, but many people won't know it, including college football coaches, because as I've said, they've got hundreds upon hundreds of videos to watch. And if you don't start those things off the right way, there's a chance they might pull that out. There's a stack that they got to go through. On top of everything else they've got to do, there's watch these videos and they're not going to get bored to death. These guys are trained at this point to, within moments of watching your video, know whether or not you're a guy that can even play for them. So I'm going to leave a link in the description. I'm going to leave a link in the description to several things. One of them is obviously a link to the GridironStuds app, because if you're a high school football player and a potential college football prospect, you definitely need to be on it. So I'll have a link in the description to that. Second, I'm going to have a link to the video that I made recently about mistakes that guys are making in their highlight video. I've made several videos about making a highlight video that's going to win. I think it's something that people take for granted. You should not do that. Your highlight video is your resume. And if you were to go to a job and hand in your resume with misspelled words and typos and grammatical errors, you're going to get eliminated from the job. Your highlight video is the same deal. It's your resume. It's basically who you are, what you've done. It's super important, and it has to be done the right way. You can't just put it together. Don't make a highlight video for your homeboys and think it's going to get you recruited. Make a highlight video for colleges. This is serious business. You're trying to play college football. Do that. All right. But if you don't have much of a highlight video, if you are not at the point where you're making plays, what do you want exposure for? What do you want me to show people? So think about that while you're running around wanting exposure. It's okay to want it. Yes, want the exposure, but before you actually get the exposure, before you go overboard and trying to ask someone to get you exposure, make sure you've got something that needs to be exposed. And the best scenario that I could give you, the best analogy that I could use is make sure that when you open that restaurant, you've got food in it. And that means you have shown yourself to be a player. And listen, if you don't know this by now, you need to learn this quickly. A whole lot, the majority of college football recruiting has a lot to do with the way that you look. All right. And I've done podcasts on that before too, which I do have on SoundCloud. Maybe I'll throw that in there too. I've got several podcasts that I've posted on SoundCloud. One of them is talking about the beauty contest that is college football recruiting. A big part of it is how you look. If you're tall, if you're strong, if you're well built, those things bode well for you. Doesn't mean you can't play if you're not tall, but it bodes well for you if you do. And if you're not tall, well, then, you're going to need to be well put together as well. If you're not well put together, if you're not strong in the weight room yet because you just started lifting weights and your bench press is 150, 175 pounds, do you want exposure? You don't. You shouldn't want exposure then. Or you could want it, you just shouldn't have it yet. Get to a point where you are lifting some serious weight because you put the work in, and you look like a football player. Not only to the eye, but when they cut on the video, they can see a guy that's running around, they can see a guy that they can imagine playing college football for them against some of the opponents that they're playing against. All right, and I don't know if you guys are able to hear me all that great in this. This mic's been turned upside down, but nevertheless. Yeah, so you guys wanting exposure, make sure there is something that needs to be exposed. The final thing I'm going to talk about here is for all my defensive backs that might be listening into this thing. I know a lot of you guys will. Listen. I also run alliesdbcamp.com and also my Instagram page at alliesdbcamp. And of course, I get DMs there too with guys asking me all kind of questions. One of the questions that I always get is, give me a tip on playing defensive back. Here's my tip. There is no one tip to being a great defensive back. I'm going to just hit you with these three things. Study, train, and, get the knowledge. Get the knowledge. Go out and train. By train, I mean lift weights and run, and then do the drill work. Okay, those are the tips. So I think people ask me this question Like I'm going to give them that one magical tip, and they were getting completely scorched last week at a 7-on-7 event. And I give you that one magical tip, and you're going to head out to the next tournament next week, and you're going to be a guy that's out there picking passes off left and right. It's not how this thing works. If that was the case, there'd be a ton of people that'd be great at playing defensive back. And I could just run around sprinkling this one tip on everybody, and they would all become magically great. That's not how this thing works. Okay, there is no one tip. You've got to put the work in. You've got to put the time in. You got to have the knowledge, which is why I have that members area at alliesdbcamp.com. I'll drop a link to that there as well. Tons of knowledge there. You got to go out and do the work, which means lift weights. You got to run. You got to be in shape. You got to be a good athlete to take on these wide receivers. And then you also are going to need to do the drill work. Okay, so you need to be smart. You need to be fast. And you need to be proficient in your movements. So there is no just one tip. And also this, I notice a lot of guys think they can just drill their way into being a great defensive back. That's not how this works. Everyone's in love with drills. And I get it because, you know, we've got Instagram now and we've got social media and they see guys doing drills and the drill looks great. And that means, and people will go, oh, that's it. They do that one drill. That's why they're great at their position. It's not that one drill. It's not just the drills. Really, you've got to put in all the other stuff. And quite frankly, the smartest players on the field are usually the ones that do best, provided you are physically up for the job. I'm not saying you could just be smart and, you know, you can't get the job done. If you're physically able to get the job done, usually the ones that succeed are the ones who are the smartest. So you're physically able, meaning you can run and you've got strength and all that, because, you know, this is a physical sport. But you also have the knowledge and you can apply the knowledge. Then those are the guys that tend to succeed. So you've got to put all these things in. There is no quick fix. There's no quick fix for college football recruiting. There's no quick fix for playing defensive back. Stuff's not going to happen overnight. You need to put all these elements together and you need to spend some time working at it. And if you haven't heard of the 10,000 hours rule, you guys go and Google it. You got to put your 10,000 hours in to be good at something. Because again, if it just took 1 hour or one tip, everyone would be great at it. And so what would you have if you were great at it too, if everyone else was great at it? If everyone's great at it, then basically you suck because you're just like everyone else. And I hate to use that terminology, but you know, that's the deal. So that's the case. Hey, listen, we've come to the end of our time here because I usually try and keep this to 30 minutes. I did want to get into 7-on-7. I'm noticing a lot of hate by high school football coaches in 7-on-7. Maybe that's something I can let marinate for another week, but I'm on Twitter and it's just a daily thing. They're hating 7-on-7. So next week, we're going to dive headlong into that whole topic of why high school football coaches love to hate 7-on-7. Be anxious to get into that because, you know, it's still going to be a topic next week. I fully expect a whole week long of hate because we're in the middle of 7-on-7 season. And man, that Monday is kicked off with all types of hate for high school all-star 7-on-7. And I really want to dig into that topic. So we'll do that next week on Gridiron Studs Live Weekly. So for all of you guys that checked in and checked out the show today, I appreciate you popping in. Feel free, if you're a high school football player, to drop a comment with your name and what your class. Drop your name, your class, what position you play, what high school you go to. It'd be cool to see that in the comments. So if you're watching this now, whether it's live or it's after the fact, and you're a high school football player, I'd love to know who you are. So drop a comment with your name, your position, your graduation class, and the school that you're from. Don't forget that part. I want to know what part of the country you are from. So drop that there. For the rest of you, I appreciate you listening and being a part of this. Again, I do the Gridiron Studs Live Weekly. I think this is my 5th episode, and this thing is only going to continue to grow. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy just dropping on here and being able to talk to you guys about some of the latest things, and then 2 of my favorite topics, defensive back play, as well as college football recruiting. So we're going to continue to expand on that. I'm also going to have some other shows that I'm going to do on YouTube that are going to be live. I'm going to do a weekly defensive back show, so be on the lookout for that. And then also a weekly college football recruiting show, an entire show devoted to college football recruiting because I think it's needed and guys need the information. So not only will I just be talking about how to get recruited, I'm also going to be talking to you fans out there about prospects across the country because I'm obviously seeing some of the best on the Gridiron Studs app, as well as I'm checking out some of the 5-star guys across the country, give you my opinion on them. And then we could talk a little bit about who has the inside track on getting these guys and landing them next signing day, which will be here before you know it. So once again, appreciate you all of you guys listening to the Gridiron Studs Live Weekly. I'll see you guys again next week. Until then, do the right thing. Thanks for watching.